Hi, scholars. So today we're going to continue with our Native Americans unit for listening and learning. So before we get started, I wanted to go over this chart that I'm going to incorporate as we're going through each story. So on this left column, I have listed students today. So that's you guys, students that you know, or people that you know, how we're living today. Then I list the other three tribes that we're going to learn about. So the first one is the Lakota Sioux. Then I have the Wampanoag tribe, and then the Lenape tribe. And then at the top, going across, I list different things we're going to learn about each tribe. So we're going to learn about their environment, the clothing that they wore, the food that they ate, and then the type of shelter or houses they lived in. And this will be a chart that we'll use throughout the entire unit to compare how different Native American tribes lived and also comparing them to how we live today. So let's think about ourselves and first going through our environment, the type of environment that we live in. So we live in a major city of Chicago, or it could be considered like an urban area where we have big skyscrapers and lots of cars, a big populated city. We also have roads and streets to walk down. We have sidewalks, and then we also have parks that we visit. Next, thinking about our clothing, we usually wear pants, blue jeans, we have shirts, different type of shoes or boots to wear, and then most of our clothing is made out of cotton. So once we keep reading our different stories, we can see how they compare to what Native American tribes wore, depending on what area they lived in. Then we can move on to our next column of food. So there's so many different types of foods that we eat today, from pizza to burgers, chicken, my personal favorite, tacos or spaghetti. We really have access to any type of food that we want nowadays. But long ago, Native American tribes had to use what was around them in nature. So depending on where they lived, that affected what type of foods they ate. And then lastly, thinking about our type of shelter. So we live in houses, some friends may live in apartments, but again, long ago, Native Americans had to use the materials in nature around them. So we'll learn about the different type of shelters that they lived in. So again, for each lesson, I'm going to include this chart, and as we go through the different Native American tribes, I'm going to add into each column. So let's get started today. We're going to learn about the Lakota Sioux tribe and the buffalo. So on this map, we have the United States of America where we live. And we know this is Illinois, and we live right here in Chicago. So long ago, the Lakota Sioux lived in this area that's shaded in green. So back then, the United States wasn't separated into the states and cities that we know today. It was just one big mass of land. And they called this land in the middle the Great Plains. Now, a plain is just a big flat land covered with a lot of grass. So the Lakota Sioux would travel and move through this land, and they will also follow this animal, which is called a buffalo. The buffalo was so important to the Lakota Sioux because it was their main source of food. It also provided them with clothing from their fur and their skin. So the buffalo was so important to the Lakota Sioux tribe, and they would travel following the buffalo through this area of the Great Plains. So we're going to start our story learning more about the Lakota Sioux tribe. So it feels like an earthquake. A herd of buffalo thunder by, hooves crashing, the earth trembles. With heads down, horns thrust forward, and eyes glaring, these beasts are frightened and dangerous. Into their midst charges a group of brave Lakota Sioux warriors on horseback. Each man has his spear and arrow ready. He will shoot as soon as he gets a bow's length away, almost close enough to reach out and touch the animal. Both the hunter's hands are busy with his weapon, and he clings to the galloping horse by the strength of his leg muscles alone. Lakota Sioux hunters shoot and kill only as many buffalo as they need for food, clothing, shelter, and tools. Sharing with others is very important to the Lakota Sioux. The buffalo killed during the hunt were divided among everyone in the tribe, including people too old or too sick to hunt for themselves. To have a successful buffalo hunt, both men and horses had to be well trained. It took months of hard work to get a horse ready. The horse needed courage and speed to run through the rushing herd of buffalo, coming face to face with a stomping, steam-breathing, hairy beast. Horses were trained to stop immediately at the nudge of a rider's knee. Not every horse was brave and fast enough to be chosen to hunt. And not every boy was brave and fast enough to be chosen to hunt either. Boys began training for buffalo hunts at a young age. They learned to ride horses well by the time they were 5 years old. They held riding contests to see who could ride the fastest, jump the highest, and shoot the straightest. The winners were allowed to ride with the scouts who searched for buffalo herds before the hunt. Boys needed lots of practice shooting at moving targets. They learned to be quick and agile by playing games with hoops and poles. Round hoops made from bent branches were rolled along the ground. As the hoop spun down the hillside with buffalo speed, boys aimed their poles through the center of the hoops. Something called rawhide was wrapped around the hoops that the boys used for target practice. Rawhide is the tough, hard leather made from a buffalo's hide or skin. Rawhide was used by the Lakota Sioux for many things. The Lakota Sioux made drums, rattles, buckets, and ropes from rawhide. Boiled rawhide was even used to make special glue. The buffalo gave the Lakota Sioux almost everything they needed for life in the Great Plains. Rawhide was pretty tough, but the Lakota Sioux discovered ways to soften hides, turning them even into soft leather for many other uses. From that soft leather, the Lakota Sioux women made moccasins, remember those were their shoes, cradles, winter robes, bedding, skirts, and dresses, pouches, and dolls. The Lakota Sioux often painted beautiful designs or pictures of the buffalo on the buffalo skin they used to make their homes. This illustration shows a teepee on which the Lakota Sioux painted horses and buffalo. The bones of the buffalo were made into knives, arrowheads, shovels, scrapers, awls, which is a type of needle, and paintbrush handles. The horns were used for cups, spoons, ladles, and toys. A part of the buffalo's muscle was used as thread for stringing bows and arrows. The hair was used for headdresses, pillows, ropes, and ornaments. The Lakota Sioux certainly knew how to make or get the things they needed. Think of all the ways they used every part of the buffalo. Nothing was wasted. Even the buffalo meat lasted long after the hunt. The Lakota Sioux often made stew from the fresh meat. They also dried buffalo meat to eat in the winter months when food was harder to find. The Lakota Sioux pounded the dry meat and mixed it with buffalo fat to make a tasty snack called pickamen. For the Lakota Sioux, the buffalo were sacred. The Lakota Sioux had special prayers to the animals before hunting and killing them. Every year they performed a special ceremony called the Buffalo Dance at the start of the summer buffalo hunting season. The Buffalo Dance ceremony is something Lakota Sioux still do and perform to this day.